Felt like the perfect home opener for the Orioles in 2025. Good bullpen, solid start, great offense, and they beat the Red Sox. I'll recap it coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Tuesday, April 1st, 2025, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb. And coming up on today's episode, we are recapping the Orioles' home opener victory as they took down the Red Sox 8-5 on Monday afternoon to start the home season at 1-0. I'll get you the 5 things you need to know from that victory, including a really good bullpen performance until the 9th inning, an offensive explosion early and late, and a solid beginning to the year for Cade Povich. Then we'll talk about the injury issues the Orioles continue to have. Albert Suarez went on the injured list over the weekend, and the big news we got Monday, Colton could be out for 2 months with a broken thumb. We will talk about how that impacts this Oriole lineup. But that's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So we begin today with an Orioles win. Final score from Monday afternoon at the Yard, the Orioles 8 and the Boston Red Sox 5 in game 1 of a 3-game set. And the home opener for the Orioles, after they split a 4-game series in Toronto to begin the series, they come back to the States and take game 1 against Boston to get to 3-2 on the year. And I'm going to get you the 5 things you need to know from this Orioles victory. And the first thing you need to know is it's almost like this Orioles offense is good. It's almost like your numbers hitting with runners in scoring position isn't very sticky year to year, and it's really not very sticky game to game. What I mean by that is just because the Orioles went 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position in a disappointing 3-1 loss to the Blue Jays on Sunday doesn't mean you have to freak out and that it's going to be a problem all year. Even though they had just gone 3 for 7, a good number on Saturday, the Orioles picked up 6 hits with runners in scoring position on Monday. They were 6 for 15 against this Red Sox pitching staff. And here's how to put this stuff in perspective. Yes, they made outs 9 times with runners in scoring position. That was more times than they did it on Sunday. But here's the thing. 6 for 15, that is a 400 batting average. If you're going to bat 400 with runners in scoring position, you're going to be great. And here's the other thing. I'm not going to overreact this way that they were 6 for 15 because they're not going to hit 400 with runners in scoring position. But they're a good team with a great lineup, and generally the teams with great hitters are going to be better with runners in scoring position because although there may be a little bit of clutch gene involved, and I do believe that some players just handle the pressure a little bit more than others in the big moments, in general, across a whole lineup, across a whole season, it's going to even out to where the better hitting teams are going to be better in those spots. And especially year to year, you're not going to get a lot of times where you have a good lineup like the Orioles had last year that failed in so many big situations like the Orioles did in the second half. And they showed that in this game on Monday from the jump. Sean Newcomb, no relation, and I wouldn't want it anyway with that performance on Monday, got the start for the Red Sox. And the Orioles did not waste any time. Cade Povich put up a 0 in the top of the first, and the O's came out there in the bottom of the first inning and went Westberg, single, Rutschman, single, O'Neill, RBI single, Mountcastle, RBI single, and it was 2-0. 4 straight singles off of Sean Newcomb just like that. And it looked like Newcomb was going to wiggle out, right? He struck out Kerstad, he struck out Laureano, and he was kind of like settling down a bit. He's going to get out of the game or get out of the inning, keep it 2-0. He's facing Cedric Mullins, who's starting against a lefty. Mullins had a 43 WRC plus against lefties last year. You can't imagine Newcomb was too worried about facing Mullins. And then Mullins ropes a 2-run double into the right center field gap to make it a 4-0 game. Really the big swing to break it open in that first inning. And that was just huge to see the Orioles jump all over him. And for Mullins to see him get an extra base hit in a big spot off a lefty is huge. Because I mentioned his struggles against left-handers. Mullins had only 5 total extra base hits against lefties all of last year. So to come up with that double against a lefty, his last double off a left-handed pitcher was June 14th of 2024. Like, it has been a while since Mullins has had some success against lefties. So to see that happen, to see him have the big day that Cedric Mullins had. I mean, if Cowser's healthy, right? If Cowser doesn't go on the injured list before the game with the broken thumb, Mullins probably doesn't start this game against the left-hander Newcomb, but he's in there in the 7th spot, and he goes 2 for 4 with 4 ribbies in this game and is now hitting .350 through 5 games this season. And for Mullins, he became the second player in baseball so far this season to reach 10 RBIs. The first one was Aaron Judge, who had a 3-homer game the other day, and the second is Cedric Mullins. That is how hot he has been to begin the year, and we'll get to it later with the Cowser injury. This might open him up to play a little bit more against lefties, even with the struggles last year with how hot he has been at the plate. And he already has multiple 4 RBI games, had 5 ribbies on opening day, drove in 4 on Monday. He only drove in 4 runs one time in the entire 2024 season. He's done it twice in the first 5 games of 2025. I mean, RBIs aren't a great stat, obviously, but he is just producing so much better in the first week of this season. I mean, he came through also with the big 2-run single with the bases loaded in the 8th that kind of broke it open, put the Orioles up 7-3, big insurance runs late, just huge swings from him in these key spots. And the O's put the game away in the 8th. Like, they scored 8 runs, 4 in the first, in their first at-bats, 4 in the 8th in their final at-bats. Kjerstad and Holiday both had opposite field RBI singles in that big 4-run 8th inning as well. Just awesome to see the O's do that, and without a home run. The 2 biggest gripes from Orioles fans: they don't hit well with runners in scoring position, and the Orioles can't score without a homer. Well, they hit .400 with runners in scoring position on Monday, and they scored 8 runs without hitting a home run. This Orioles offense is versatile. They can do a lot of things, and that was an awesome performance on Monday. And really the best performance came with a guy I've barely mentioned already, and that was Tyler O'Neill, who went 4 for 4 in this game with a double and 3 singles, had an RBI single in the first, but that was really the only time he came up in those big runners in scoring position spots. He was the one kind of starting the rallies on Monday, hitting the 3-hole against the lefty, because remember, only Aaron Judge was better against left-handed pitching in 2024. That's one of the big reasons why the Orioles got O'Neill, and he's now 8 for 14 on the season. And with him in this lineup, I mean, the Orioles are going to be so good against left-handed pitching. My first bold prediction of the year that I did last week on the show was the Orioles would be the best offense against left-handed pitchers in baseball this year. And they showed it with the guys they can send out there against the lefty. And for O'Neill, who reached base 5 times on opening day, did that for the first time in his career, now has a 4-hit game on Monday. That was his first 4-hit game since August 6th of 2021, when he was having his career season with the Cardinals. That was the last time he had 4 hits, almost 4 years ago. Now, you still worry about him getting injured, because that has been his issue his entire career, but we have seen a brand new version of Tyler O'Neill, and we got to see the new fishing celebration. After the double, you fish into the dugout. He catches Albert Suarez, who kind of flops around in the dugout. That was funny to see. And I'm betting the Red Sox, who employed Tyler O'Neill last season, were regretting letting him walk. And if we're doing our kind of first O'Neill versus Santander update, O'Neill is 8 for 14. And my live Anthony Santander update, I'm recording this, the Blue Jays are in the 6th inning of their game. My live Santander update is he is now 3 for 18 to begin the year. We will certainly be following that all season, but point O'Neill in the first 5 games of this season. Now, the third thing you need to know from this one was Cade Povich was solid in his season debut. The Orioles have now been one time through the rotation as Cade Povich, who won the number 5 spot out of spring with Grayson Rodriguez going on the injured list. I would just call that a solid start at the end of the day. He only lasted 4 1/3 innings because he was nibbling a lot. It took him 94 pitches to get through 4 1/3. 3 earned runs on 5 hits, 8 strikeouts, 2 walks, 5 hard hit balls by the Red Sox hitters against him. I think the impressive part of what Povich did was 8 of his 13 outs were strikeouts. That was the highest percentage of outs he has gotten via the strikeout in his big league career. 8 strikeouts, tied for second most he's ever had in a major league start. And he was just dotting the four-seam fastball. We know it's not huge velocity. It's going to be 91 to 93 from the left-hander, but it has that high spin rate, that almost rising effect. And he was dotting it at both the top of the zone, the bottom of the zone, on the outside corner. I really liked what we saw from his four-seam fastball command on Monday. And I'm truly in love with the big overhand curveball that Povich throws. It's not a huge swing and miss or strikeout pitch for Cade Povich. It's more of a get me over curveball. And if he does hang it, it can become an issue. But it was his second most used pitch on Monday. And he did get 4 whiffs on it that led all of his offerings, which is a little unusual, but also had it for 5 called strikes. Just was a really effective pitch to both righties and left-handers, but especially to help him get ahead of all the right-handed hitters that the Red Sox had stacked in that lineup. You would like for him to attack the zone more. This was his problem a lot of the time late last season, where the stuff would be good, but he would just nibble too much. He did only walk 2 batters, but when you're striking out 8, you're getting into a lot of 2 and 3 ball counts. Even if you eventually get outs, there were a lot of foul balls by the Red Sox. That's how you get to 94 pitches in 4 1/3 innings and have to come out of the game. But I thought really, really positive signs from the stuff we saw from Povich. That new kick change he's throwing, didn't throw it too much, didn't make a huge impact in this game, but it's certainly a pitch to watch that he has added this season. I say solid start, right? The first time through the order, Zach Eflin really the only starter who made a good start. I would say we saw flashes from Kramer. I think we saw flashes from Sugano, flashes from Povich. Morton wasn't very good. We'll see how it all goes in the second turnaround. But keeping with the pitching, the fourth thing you need to know from the Orioles' home opener victory is that this is the bullpen that I think this Orioles team is going to have. This is the bullpen that I've been calling potentially the best in baseball. This is the bullpen that Fangraphs has projected as the second best in the majors this year. You pull Povich after 94 pitches. Matt Bowman comes in the 5th. Quick work. Sir Anthony Dominguez in the 6th. He's got closer stuff. He was your closer last year, and he's pitching in the 6th. Easy work for Dominguez, who's looked good after a tough spring training. I mean, Keegan Aiken came out there in the 7th. He made Rafaela, Charon Duran, and Rafael Devers look like they were nothing. Looked like they were double-A hitters. It was ridiculous what Aiken did. Cano was awesome in the 8th inning. Those 4 relievers to get it from Povich to Bautista, 3 2/3 innings, just 1 base runner, a single that Bowman allowed in the 5th. 1 hit, no runs, 5 Ks, no walks, no hard hit balls, 11 swings and misses between the 4 of them. That was filthy. And that didn't even include Felix Bautista, who we'll get to. It didn't even include Gregory Soto, who I think could be the Orioles' best reliever this year, and he's looked pretty solid so far this season. It didn't even include Brian Baker, who's been great through his first couple of outings. That is how good this bullpen can be, and that is how you pitch when you only get 13 outs from your starter and trying to hand the ball to Felix Bautista. And it looked like Felix would be in a tough 1-run spot, but then the Orioles scored 4 in the bottom of the 8th, broke it open, went up 8-3, and Bautista still came in there because it's the 5th game. He's only pitched once so far. They have an off day on Tuesday. It was fine to throw him out there in the 9th. And unfortunately, the 5th and final thing you need to know from the Orioles' 8-3 win over the Red Sox on Monday is that Bautista was fairly shaky. He was shaky a little bit on Saturday, but he did throw a scoreless inning to close out that 4-run win, so still hasn't gotten a save opportunity. But Monday was rough at times. And Ben McDonald on the Masson broadcast talked about how he thought his mechanics looked off. They weren't really synced up. And yeah, that really seemed to be the case for Felix. Now, his velocity was a little bit up, averaging 97.5, maxed out 98.2 on the fastball. Those numbers both better than what we saw in the first outing on Saturday, so that is good. He threw his new cutter for the first 2 times. That was nice to see as well, but basically had 0 splitter command, and that's an issue because that, despite the fastball, that splitter is his knockout pitch. Slider didn't have its usual command. The fastball was kind of erratic. His mechanics were just a little bit off, and hopefully it's just him trying to knock off the rust. He did give up 2 runs. It was a little ugly. He actually walked Devers and allowed Alex Bregman to step up with 2 on and 2 out. And the Red Sox, who were down 5, got the tying run to the plate with 2 down in the 9th. Luckily, got him to pop out in the infield on the second pitch to end the game with a really good, well-located at the top of the zone fastball. That is the classic Felix fastball right there to get that final out. He wasn't his best. He will continue to get better. He's going to be rusty. It's just awesome to see him on the mound, and it's awesome to see him coming out of that bullpen, even though it wasn't a save situation, even though it was a day game, so he didn't get the full light show, didn't get the save, to see that sold-out Oriole Park greet Felix Bautista, to see Adley give Bautista a hug for the first time on the mound after a game since 2023. Those were all amazing signs and an amazing win for the Orioles in the home opener. And it was nice to have that good news on Monday with the game, because the injury news we got before the game was not good. Colton Cowser is going to miss a significant amount of time for, honestly, a stupid play that he made on Sunday. We'll break down the injury and what the Orioles do in Cowser's absence coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who is cutting down the nets. Now, if you had your eye on some underdogs this year, you probably didn't do well in your brackets or your picks, because for just the second time ever, all 4 number 1 seeds in the men's tournament are into the Final Four. Now, while there's not underdogs or Cinderella, could make for maybe the best Final Four of all time with how good these teams are. And listen, Duke might be the best team, but ain't no way I'm cheering on Duke. I'm looking at Houston this weekend to get to the championship game. And if I want to put that bet in, the FanDuel app, super simple to use. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. So the Orioles get the 8-5 win over the Red Sox on Monday in the home opener, but they had to do it without Colton Cowser, who unfortunately before the game was placed on the 10-day injured list with a left thumb fracture. And this is not the worst news that the O's could get, because historically those thumb injuries, sometimes guys will tear the UCL ligament in that thumb, and sometimes you'll actually miss more time with that than you would with a fracture. So maybe not the worst news, but pretty bad news that the Orioles got on Cowser. Now, the backstory here was in the 7th inning of Sunday's game in Toronto, Cowser hit kind of a slow chopper up the first baseline. He was trying to beat the throw to the bag, and it looked like he had a step on the pitcher covering and was actually going to get an infield single to try and start a rally with the O's down 1 in that 7th inning, was busting his hump down the line and decided to dive headfirst into the bag. Now, his dive was weird. His left hand kind of got caught behind him as he dove. It slowed up, and actually because of his odd dive, he ended up being out. Like if it would have been even just a normal dive, he would have been safe at first base. But not only was he out and it slowed him down, he also got injured. Now, Cowser stayed in the game, played defensively in left field in both the 7th and 8th innings, but he was due up to hit in the 9th with the Orioles trailing by 2 and a righty on the mound. And Brandon Hyde sent up pinch hitter Gary Sanchez to hit for Cowser. And at that point, it's like, okay, this is not a move the Orioles are just going to make. Clearly something is wrong with Cowser. The broadcast smartly immediately went back to the video of that dive head first, that slide into first. And Brandon Hyde said after the game that Cowser did hurt himself on that slide. He was okay to play the field, but didn't feel like he could swing the bat well with that thumb. So that's why he got pinch hit for in the 9th inning. Hyde said Sunday that he was getting testing. We figured we would know more Monday, and now we do. It is a fractured left thumb for Colton Cowser, the same left hand that he broke on that hit by pitch in Game 2 of the postseason last year that ended his season, and he had to get surgery in the offseason. But just don't slide into first base. Not only is it slower, you realize why sprinters don't dive for the finish line. It is faster to just stride through the line. It's faster to stride to first base. It also leads to so many injuries like this. It is just a dumb play. And unfortunately, Colton Cowser had to learn the hard way. And you love how hard he plays the game, but you can't, especially in Game 4 of the season, you can't be putting yourself in that situation. It's a dumb play. He knows it. I won't harp on it anymore. He's learned his lesson, but it is unfortunate for the Orioles. Brandon Hyde said on Monday that it'll be a minimum of 6 to 8 weeks that Cowser will be out. 6 weeks would put us around May 12th. 8 weeks puts us at about May 26th. And Hyde said minimum, it could be more. Like there's a solid chance Cowser does not return to the Orioles lineup until June. And that is very unfortunate for a guy who finished second and should have won AL Rookie of the Year last year, has been hitting leadoff with Gunnar out, was going to be a big part of this Orioles offense this year, and still can be, right? He can still get, if he returns, 4 months of this season when he comes back, when the Orioles will need him most. But not having him in this order It hurts. It really does hurt. Even though he hasn't swung it too well in the first 4 games of the year, he's going to be a big part of this lineup. Now, hopefully it's on the shorter end. Plenty of players have returned in 6 weeks or even less from a broken thumb. I'm not a doctor or his surgeon or whomever. It's all really depends on how bad the injury is and how well Cowser responds to the rehab and the treatment he's going to get on it. Haven't really heard anything yet about him getting surgery or not, but Dylan Carlson was called up to replace him on the roster. Carlson, the veteran switch hitting outfielder who the Orioles signed to a 1-year, $1 million deal this offseason. Switch hitter, better from the right side, was great in 2021 as a rookie with the Cardinals, then okay in 2022, then really bad the last 2 seasons with the Cardinals and the Rays. Was actually non-tendered by Tampa Bay this offseason, which made him a free agent. And he does have minor league options, which is why the Orioles were able to sign him to a major league deal, but send him to AAA to begin the year. He actually homered in the AAA opener on Friday night, I believe it was. It may have homered on Saturday, but he comes up. He didn't start this game, but he came in as a pinch hitter at one point for Ramon Laureano and finished the game in the outfield. He can play all 3 outfield positions, which is good. Plays them pretty well. He can run a little bit, but I guess the question is for Cowser, will Carlson be the main replacement? Like, you have to plan on Cowser being out for 2 months. That's just how you have to plan for it. Hopefully he comes back sooner than that, but you have to plan for we will not have him until June. And what is the plan in the meantime? Well, in terms of the at-bats, Heston Kjerstad is going to get a lot of them. And him starting at DH with a left-handed pitcher on the mound on Monday was a really good first sign that Kjerstad's going to get the majority of the at-bats with Cowser out. And, we kept trying to answer the question, right? How's Kjerstad going to get at-bats with so many talented bats on this roster? And we said they'll figure it out. They'll mix and match. Well, sometimes these things work themselves out, and this is a case of that right now with Cowser going down and Kjerstad being ready to immediately step in for those ABs. So I think against righties, you will probably see O'Neill in left, Mullins in center, Kjerstad in right, then with O'Hearn DHing and Mountcastle at first base. And then versus lefties, you will definitely see O'Neill out there in left field. You'll definitely see Ramon Laureano in right field. You will definitely see Ryan Mountcastle at first base. And then it's going to be a big question. Does Cedric Mullins play center field? Because in the initial plan with Cowser healthy, you probably play Cowser in center and you sit Mullins versus the lefties because he's been so bad against them last year. But now Cowser's not in there. So your other option is, do you play Laureano or maybe Dylan Carlson, who again is better against lefties? Do you play them in center field against the left-handers and still sit Mullins? Do you just play Mullins and hit him 7th or hit him 9th like the Orioles did on Monday with Mullins getting the start against the lefty? That is the question. I think with the way he's swinging the bat right now, you give him the on-ramp to play at first versus lefties and see how it goes. And then at DH, it'll also be interesting because the Orioles will try to get Gary Sanchez his starts against left-handers. So in that case, Sanchez catches and Adley takes up the DH spot against lefties, but you'll also have games like Monday where Adley was catching against a left-hander and the DH spot was open and it went to Kjerstad instead of someone like, I don't really know who else it would have gone to, but they didn't put Carlson or didn't put Jorge Mateo, who hits much better against lefties, in that starting lineup. Instead, it was Kjerstad. So I think Kjerstad will still have the upper hand in those games where Sanchez isn't catching to be the DH against lefties. Now, Kjerstad didn't look very good when he faced the lefty Sean Newcomb on Monday. There hasn't been a lot of ABs for him against lefties in the big leagues, but they seem at least somewhat confident to give him some chances out there. But Brandon Hyde did give us good news on Gunnar Henderson. He expects him to return off the injury list when he is eligible on Thursday. So that means only one more game. That's Wednesday's game after the off day here on Tuesday without Gunnar. And now it's a different kind of question, which I'm going to dive into more on tomorrow's episode, but it's Gunnar's coming back. Initially, I was saying you got to DFA Mateo, right? There's nobody else you can take off this roster. Well, now with Cowser on the IL, you have a spot opened up. You could option Dylan Carlson or someone like Kjerstad or Holiday, but I don't think, those are everyday players. You're not optioning those guys. And then your DFA options are, they'd always been Ramon Arias and Ramon Laureano and Jorge Mateo as well. But with now Dylan Carlson in the mix, who had already begun the year at AAA, it is much easier to just send him to AAA, activate Gunnar, and keep Mateo on the roster. And because Mateo didn't go great, but he played some outfield last year, the O's were trying to transition him there. He could be kind of your 5th outfielder / 6th infielder / utility pinch runner on the roster. And the Orioles have liked him in that spot, and he continues to have that spot for now. But it'll be really interesting to see if they keep Mayo or keep Carlson or someone else. But it's interesting that Mateo didn't start Monday, and I think we're going to learn a lot from Wednesday's lineup because the Orioles face another lefty on Wednesday in the Red Sox ace Garrett Crochet, who they acquired in trade this offseason. Whether or not Mateo's in there or some other guys are in there, how they configure Wednesday's lineup against a really good lefty when they had some time to process the Cowser injury, I think is going to tell us a lot about what they do when Gunnar comes back and what the lineup looks like against lefties moving forward. But Cowser was not the only injury over the weekend. There was also Albert Suarez, which we talked about a little bit, but I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into what the Orioles kind of do without Suarez. That's coming up next to finish off the show. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. And you need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you always talk to a real person. And for the trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. So join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your order. That's at supplyhouse.com. So to finish things off, just wanted to briefly touch on the Albert Suarez injury. We talked about it a little bit on Monday's episode, but Suarez over the weekend was placed on the 15-day injured list with a shoulder issue. It was right shoulder inflammation, the Orioles called it. He was in the dugout with the O's on Monday looking okay, but again, clearly something bothering him. Now, he only pitched once this season. It was on Friday in relief, 2 2/3, 5 hits, 2 runs, 1 earned, 2 Ks, no walks, and 5 hard hit balls in the Orioles loss to the Blue Jays when he came in long relief of Charlie Morton. His fastball touched 95, but he more sat 93 miles an hour, and that's not the usual Suarez. He was averaging 94.8 on that four-seamer last year, so for him to just barely touch 95 and sit 93, apparently that velo drop was some sort of shoulder issue that he was dealing with on Friday. Now, without Albert Suarez, you don't have a true long man in the bullpen. That was his role to begin the year as he was beat out by Cade Povich for the number 5 starter spot. We know how important Suarez was to the Orioles pitching staff as a whole in 2024, but we've also talked about this offseason how hey, the stuff is not very good. He could be due for some sort of decline, and we shall see how this shoulder comes into the mix. Now, if this is a long-term issue, if he's out for months and months, it does open the spot for some sort of long reliever, and Suarez could have found himself in the chopping block anyway, but a Trevor Rogers when he comes back, a Roansy Contreras right now, a Kyle Gibson whenever he's ready could certainly be in the mix, even a Cody Poteet, the right-hander who the Orioles acquired via trade over the weekend, who I will break down further on tomorrow's episode, so make sure to come back for that one. But also for now, it gives you a spot for Matt Bowman. You have Matt Bowman, who was called up and added to the 40-man roster to replace him. Bowman, who was the last cut from the spring training roster, but cleared waivers and accepted a AAA assignment because I think he knew he'd be the first reliever recalled when the Orioles needed one, and he certainly was. And between Bowman, Keegan Aiken, and Brian Baker, you have multiple relievers that can go multiple innings if they have enough rest. And Bowman's been good so far. 2 outings, 2 1/3 scoreless, a hit, 2 Ks, and no walks. He's super funky with that kind of sidearm right-handed delivery, throwing from almost the third base bag. I really just love watching Matt Bowman pitch, and it's helped that he's been really, really good in his first 2 outings since he was called up. And he's kind of got that Jacob Webb-style rubber arm where you can pitch him a whole lot, and that can really help your bullpen. He's never quite going to be in these big-time high-leverage spots, but 5th, 6th, 7th innings, you can go to Matt Bowman really at any time. And he's going to struggle against lefties at times, but if there's a lot of righties out there, he's going to get you outs. And that's what he did for the Orioles late last year, and that's what he's doing for the Orioles for now. I think the bullpen can survive without a true long man if they have Bowman and Aiken out there. And also it makes you think about Grayson Rodriguez, and he did throw his first bullpen session on Sunday of his kind of rebuild up. So another positive step in the right direction for Grayson. Hoping to have him back at some point in May. That's kind of still the timeline here. We will see, but a lot of options for the O's to go to with Suarez on the IL, and we'll see how they mix and match things. But I like the way this bullpen is looking right now. The big question mark remains the starting rotation, but nice thing for the pitching staff as a whole, they have the day off on Tuesday before they are back at it against the Red Sox on Wednesday. But even with the day off Tuesday, I'll still have a Wednesday morning episode for you. We'll talk about Cade Povich, who's coming to Baltimore. We'll talk about some Ryan Mountcastle trade rumors, and we'll talk a little bit more about some updates from AAA, any injury updates we get, and all that good stuff coming up on tomorrow's episode. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel. Subscribe wherever you listen, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating and a review. It really helps the show. And if you have any thoughts on the show, thoughts on the Orioles, want to talk ball, ask a mailbag question, whatever it may be, you can always email me, lockedonorioles@gmail.com. That'll do it today. Back tomorrow. Until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.